Hi everyone, meteorologist Matt Gray here. Welcome to another edition of the Brainstorm. I saw some cool video from earlier this week, and I figured I would show it to you and then kind of explain what's going on here. So I want you to watch right above these two telescopes here. This is on the volcano of Mauna Kea. It's on the big island of Hawaii, one of the many volcanoes there. The three big ones, of course, and in fact the other one, Mauna Loa, just erupted here in the past year or so. But everything's good here on Mauna Kea, and dark skies, perfect for stargazing, and that's why all these telescopes are here. But look what this camera captured. Look at that. You can see that little red kind of filament there. Looks like kind of a little red jellyfish up in the sky. If you'll notice, kind of right in the bottom corner there, you can see lightning from a thunderstorm. And yes, these two things are related. What you're seeing is called a sprite, and it is a form of upper atmospheric lightning, and it is probably one of the coolest things that I learned about as I was in school and kind of delving into the world of meteorology. So you can see some really awesome stuff, and I'll show you the kind of the slow motion here again, so you can see just how kind of different they are. And you'll notice that when there's lightning, the sprite follows it right about the same time. It's one of the few things that we are certain about with all of this upper atmospheric lightning, because there's a lot of interesting stuff. So let's show you here. It's not just sprites. There's also something called elves, which are these kind of red halos. And then you have further down in the stratosphere, basically right off the top of these thunderstorm clouds, you'll also get something called a blue jet. And looks like it's like a little tube of blue light and shoots off into the stratosphere. So some pretty neat stuff. And you can notice here, higher up you go, the redder these get. The lower down you go, you end up in blue. There's a reason for that I'm going to explain. There's some other cool stuff here as well, as far as what we know, because we don't know a lot. We do know these sprites are directly tied to lightning strikes here on the ground. We know that the blue jets are not necessarily that way, so there's a lot of things, kind of what's happening at the top of these thunderstorms and how it's dissipating energy in the other direction, not just down to the ground, but up into the upper atmosphere, that we don't quite understand just yet. But let's talk about the colors first, because at least that's something that we can kind of sink our teeth into. I used a graphic similar to this when I was talking about the color of the auroras. Now, auroras happen way higher than this, and so that's one of the reasons why you end up with kind of those green, purplish colors. But down here in our little breathable atmosphere, you've got the troposphere, you've got the stratosphere, you got the mesosphere, before you get to the official edge of space. So you've got our thunderstorms, that's where all the weather happens down here in the troposphere, and most of the air we breathe is a mix of oxygen and nitrogen. And so as you get higher up into the stratosphere, however, you end up with a lot more oxygen concentration. That's because the ozone layer actually made up entirely of oxygen molecules. They're just arranged a little bit differently and help bounce off those harmful rays and keep us from getting all cooked by the sun with ultraviolet radiation. This is where airplanes fly as well, so they can get above thunderstorms like this. In fact, airplane pilots have talked about sprites and jets for years, but it wasn't until the 1990s that science was able to get them on video, and they were able to prove that they existed and weren't just some story, some fabrication. Came from a myth basically to a fact, and yeah, it's been such a fascinating area of study ever since. And now we're seeing astronauts take pictures of that, which I'll show you here in a moment. But as you get up higher in the atmosphere, basically you end up with more of a nitrogen concentration up here in the mesosphere, and so that's why the red sprites, which happen up here, that's why they're red. You get into the stratosphere where those jets come up, that's why they're in blue, because they're punching through that ozone layer, and so they're interacting with a lot of oxygen, which is going to scatter off that blue color. Very similar to why the sky is blue. Any sort of light usually reflects that blue. Of course, you also have the red as well, which when the sun is setting, you get more and more of that red color, because it's more thicker of an layer of atmosphere that the sunlight has to travel through to reach your eyes. So some pretty cool stuff there with why things are colored the way they are. Now, here's the fun part. I just want to show you some cool pictures of these things, because what we know beyond kind of, well, this is kind of connected to this, and this happens when this happens, that's about all that we know. So really kind of fascinating area of study, this upper atmospheric lightning. This is a photo from the International Space Station. You can see how high up these sprites go. There's a glow from lightning strikes in the top of a thunderstorm cloud, and then right there's that sprite. There's the kind of visible edge of the atmosphere, and there's the moon coming in behind there. If this was the sun, it would be super bright and you wouldn't be able to see much of nothing. Here's another great image from the International Space Station. You can see the thunderheads here. You can see that glow of the lightning. This one might be a little bit hard to see for some of you. Very faintly, you can see one sprite and then another sprite right there. So, like I said, the one thing we do know is that when lightning strikes, these sprites, at least occasionally, form. I think there may be a link to positive lightning, which is much rarer and much more powerful, that there may be a connection there to why you have all this energy that has to go up in another direction. And then, of course, you have the blue jets. This is actually something different. This is from, once again, the top of the Mauna Kea volcano, but this is what's being called now a gigantic jet. So it starts off as a blue jet, but it, it keeps going higher and higher in the atmosphere, and by the end, it kind of looks like a sprite almost by the end there. So kind of a mega combo of the two. So some pretty awesome stuff. Upper atmospheric lightning. It's sure pretty to look at, and remains a mystery as to exactly the mechanisms behind it all. Because, hey, lightning, pretty dangerous, hard to study up close, hard to figure out. All right, so some neat stuff. We'll see you next week for another edition of the Brainstorm on video. Go ahead and subscribe to the 4 News Now YouTube channel, and sign up for the newsletter on KXLY.com if you want more stuff like this, or talk about the science behind the weather.